40% of service members reported distress, and about 35% of their spouses reported distress. Again, this is only 45 days after returning home, so we're unsure if this is an adjustment period number or if this is a honeymoon phase number. So in our follow-up work, we'd like to find out more about are things, how is this going to play out? All right, moving right through this. So participants reporting one mental health concern. These concerns included post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, suicidal risk, or alcohol use risk. And approximately 48% of service members reported at least one concern, and 43% of their spouses or significant others reported one concern. And then out of that group who are parents, approximately 45% of that group are parents of children. And again, we want to emphasize that we're thinking of family stability, how we create a stable family context. And so having a mental health issue going on within a home could certainly create stress within that system. Another issue that's got a lot of attention in the news media is the utilization of mental health services, and particularly the issue of stigma, which exists within the military, and stigma really is related to the willingness to get help if you need help. And so out of those who reported at least one mental health difficulty, only 14% of soldiers and only 13% of spouses or significant others reported using a mental health service of some kind. Now again, I want to emphasize that these were not necessarily professional therapists or psychologists or marital and family therapists. These could have ranged from a physician, a clergy member, or something like that. So again, this could just have been one visit or one call. So again, we certainly need to explore that a little bit more. But the point I want to emphasize is that even out of this list over here, only 14% of soldiers and 13% of spouses had used a mental health service of some kind, and that's just a graph showing that. Okay, and then I'm close to the end here of.
So this has been very helpful for me because this confirms a lot of what we've been working on, and I've got a litany of questions to go through. So this has been very enlightening, and keep up the good work. Keep going.
Okay, thank you. I was worried you were cutting me off there.
No, not at all. We've been working on this for months. So
okay.
This has codified a lot of what I believe.
Thank you, Senator. So again, sorry for the small print on the side over here, but we just asked about what are barriers to mental health care, and there are some within military barriers. So things like I don't want it to appear on my military record. Members of my unit may lose confidence in me. So there's that within the military barriers, but there's also some without of the military barriers. So things like mental health care costs too much, or I have a hard time scheduling an appointment, or I have to drive significant distances to get an appointment. So these are for the service members, and again, the highest scores were the military-related scores, and again, that addresses the stigma issue, and I know the National Guard is working very hard to address this issue of stigma, but it is a concern that stigma remains. And then for the spouses, significant others, their concerns were a little bit different. Their concerns were, a third of them were worried about cost. And again, from my perspective, working with these families, I think it's a travesty that you go to war and then you come back and you can't get the services that you might need. And my bias is that everyone who goes through a lengthy deployment should have some kind of support, whether it's, you call it counseling or psychotherapy or coaching or whatever you call it. I think everyone has this adjustment that they go through. So, but the spouses were concerned about the costs of care, difficulty scheduling an appointment, difficult getting time off work for treatment. So again, sometimes mental health care can become another burden in someone's life. So just a summary of some of our key findings. So I don't want to paint a bleak picture because most of these soldiers and their families are doing very well after they come home. They're very resilient. I've just, in my work, been extraordinarily impressed about the sacrifices these families make, how they deploy, how they just deal with things that really go wrong. Again, if I just in a practical level, just think on any day how many things may go wrong. So if your husband's deployed and the plumbing goes out, or the car breaks down, or you have, the infant stays up all night, just those kind of stresses are, but these families really, for the most, are extraordinarily resilient. Something else, just in summary, mental health difficulties are present in a number of returning veterans in Michigan, and a number of spouses or significant others are showing that they have difficulties as well. About 40% of marriages or relationships report distress, and again, we don't know how those will play out. I think, again, sometimes distress is a normal event and that will subside. In other cases, that might lead to a dissolution of the relationship. So again, we don't know how those all play out. So a significant portion of those with at least one mental health concern are parents of children. Very few of those reporting a mental health concern are using services. And again, this is just 45 days after return, so that may be, or hopefully getting better over time as service members are back longer. Then there's these treatment barriers, so concerns about confidentiality. If I go seek treatment, what will that do to my military record? What will I lose my job? Will I be demoted? Will I be able to redeploy again? So those are often concerns. There's very limited family and couple treatments available out there. Untrained treatment providers, so where there are treatment providers, so perhaps in a rural county there may be treatment providers, but do they know, are they trained in the best treatments? Are they trained to work with the military? So those are some concerns. The cost of treatment, I just want to briefly, I don't want to mention the study too much, but this RAND study has been in the media a lot lately, and in their study, what they concluded was that 33% of returning veterans reported a mental health or cognitive concern. 18% of their sample had PTSD or depression, and they estimate that's 300,000 returning veterans, which is a staggering number. And traumatic brain injury, which is getting a lot of press as well. This is where you'd be exposed to an explosion of some kind or have a brief concussion. They estimating 320,000 veterans are returning with traumatic brain injuries, which again is a staggering number. They also talked about barriers to care, stigma, access to high quality care, and in their survey only 53% had sought help for a condition. And then they emphasize the costs, and maybe this is something to think about, the costs, that if we offer high quality care early on that's evidence-based, that can certainly have a long-term effect of preventing, of saving costs down the line. And we thought that our findings really mirrored in many ways the RAND study. Some important considerations. Mental health difficulties have a clear connection to things like divorce, substance abuse, homelessness, violence, and other things like that. Some veterans may develop mental health difficulties after an incubation period has passed. So this might only come a year or 2 years, 3 years, 10 years down the line. Untreated mental health difficulties can lead to long-term higher costs to both states and to the nation, and that's echoing the RAND study. And then, importantly, National Guard needs are very unique. It's a citizen force returning to communities that may not understand the military. They may be in rural areas of the state, so there may not be that many social support or treatment providers available. So we just have a few recommendations today. We don't have a formal legislative agenda, but want to raise issues about these, some of these recommendations. First of all, the need for continued support for returning veterans. We can't say enough how much we believe support, whether it's physical, mental health support, that's critical. Need for continuing support for families of veterans, and I think, again, I'm a little biased because I am a marital and family therapist, but truly there is a huge need for families and for spouses and for children if they need help to be getting services. Third, to make support services, including mental health care, both accessible, affordable, and effective. And so this is training of mental health providers who are not exposed to military culture, working within the military to decrease stigma, providing truly confidential services, making sure that rural areas have access to quality health care, looking